afternoon, high in the mid-60s. And the outlook for Saturday night, rain and isolated thunderstorms, then becoming partly cloudy, low in the mid-40s. Keep it here on Oak 93.5. I'm Nowcast meteorologist Jim Vaughn.
Welcome to Meaningful Conversations with Dr. L. This is a Savage Bull Entertainment production.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome all you night owls to another edition of Meaningful Conversations with Dr. L. I'm your host, and I'm so glad you've joined us tonight. I want to remind everyone that this is a live show, and so at any time you can call in with questions or comments, especially if you have questions for our guest tonight. We've got another good one for you tonight. I can't wait to jump in. But the number again to call in to Meaningful Conversations is 919-899-9305. 919-899-9305. I am super thrilled to have someone who is just an amazing person. He is someone I think I can call a friend. I hope I can call a friend. And certainly I hope I can call him as an attorney if I ever need one, because he is one of the best in the game. We have none other than Ralph Frasier, who is an attorney at law. He is a managing partner at Frasier and Griffin. He is also an entrepreneur, a business owner, so an awesome and brilliant thinker when it comes to making money and when it comes to Black entrepreneurship in particular, and really representing, our community at its finest. Comes from a history of movers and shakers, and I'll let him tell you a little bit more about who he is. But we're going to talk about all things Chauvin case and the verdict. We're going to talk about a business that he started that may be of interest to some of you out there who are whiskey connoisseurs, who have a particular liking to whiskey and moonshine. This brother, along with a couple of others, and I hope I'm getting this right, founded Still Moon Whiskey. And we'll go into that. And I had some information incorrect on the promo piece. I had that he is the owner of Hersey Pharmacy, but he's not. He actually said that he is certainly a patron, and he'll give a shout out to the owner. But we're so glad to have you on, Ralph. I had a long bio for you, but I just want to jump right in and first of all say thank you. Thank you for joining us. People can find your bio on your LinkedIn page. They can find your bio on the homepage or webpage for Frasier and Griffin. And so you guys can Google him and find all about him. But I want to say welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight, Ralph.
And thank you for having me on. It is a pleasure to be on your show. It's been a long time since I've had an opportunity to talk to you and or see you.
Yep.
I know we're on radio, but I have the fortune of being on Zoom, so I can at least see you.
Yeah,
so
that's
and
true.
It's been a long time since I've seen you. So
it has
it's
been.
good to see you, and I'm glad to be on your show.
Thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure to have you. And this COVID thing shut a whole lot of stuff down, and people haven't been able to get out. But as we're getting people vaccinated and Hopefully, people are continuing to practice the three W's, you all, wearing your face covering or mask, covering your nose and mouth, not your whole face, but you're certainly your nose and your mouth, washing your hands, keeping a safe distance, at least 6 feet. We will get to that point again where we can be out and about and seeing each other live and in living color. I do want to say before we go in to the show and before we jump right in that it is Earth Day. So I hope you are mindful of that and that you are doing your part to take care of the environment. Global warming is real. Trust the science. So make sure you're doing, just little things can make a difference. Make sure you are recycling. And last week I talked about how the mask and the rubber gloves were endangering birds and other species. So make sure you tear those things off the mask that loop behind your ears, the ties, tear those off before you discard, and cut up your rubber gloves. That's for everybody, medical professionals and everybody that's wearing those things. And just make sure that we are doing our part, because this is the only, as far as we know, habitable planet for humans. And so we need to continue to call this place home. But let's jump in. So my friend Ralph, you've got an impressive resume, and like I said, people can Google it and read it, and find you on LinkedIn and all of that. But I like to go beyond the resumes of people and share with our audience about who the person is. Sometimes resumes don't tell who people are and what they like, their hobbies, where they come from. And so I always start with this question: who is Ralph Frasier? Tell the listening audience, who you are, where you grew up, what your family background, because you also come from an amazing family. So who is Ralph Frasier? How do you describe yourself?
So I am blessed to have come from an amazing family.
Mm-hmm.
That is very true. Both on my mother and my father's side, I have had the good fortune of having very good leaders and people who could set good paths for me to be able to be successful now. And so I did have that good fortune, and I certainly am mindful of that opportunity and mindful of trying to make sure that I continue to set those types of opportunities for not only my children, but for others as we move forward in life. My mother is a Spalding from Farmers Union, North Carolina, which is where they originate. And my father is a Frasier. They actually originate from South Carolina, but his mother's family were the Kennedy family, who were also very active in Durham. Both of them were very heavily involved and former presidents of North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance Company. Both of my great uncles actually on both sides. And my family was very involved in the civil rights movement here in the Durham area. My father and my uncle were the first African Americans to attend UNC Chapel Hill.
Yes.
They weren't allowed to go to UNC Chapel
in
Hill.
1955, integrated UNC Chapel Hill.
To go to UNC Chapel Hill.
That's right.
With Frasier versus UNC. So it was actually the first federal case that was decided in these United States, mandating that African Americans attend majority institutions in the U.S. And that was about 10 years before the actual civil rights movement, and 10 years before it actually was put into application to desegregate Clemson and some of the others that get a lot of hoopla.
Yeah.
The difference that happened here is that the National Guard wasn't needed. And so it didn't get some of the press, although I have since learned that Frasier versus UNC was the most talked about story in the history in 1955.
Wow.
So,
yeah,
you just never know. But, so those kinds of things, I had some very good exposures and some very, very good upbringing. But, where did I was born in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Okay.
We moved to Columbus, Ohio. I spent a great deal of time. My parents did separate when I was a little younger, and I spent a great deal of time back in my mother's family's home in Farmers Union, North Carolina. Um, and that has a little bit to do with the whiskey.
Okay.
Um, and some of my other hobbies that I like to do, I like to race cars, and I like old cars.
Wow.
And so and then my father was a successful general counsel of a bank in Ohio.
Yeah.
And so
So
I
good
had
stock.
somewhat diverse upbringing, and my mother was deep in the country, and he was kind of up in the city, and quite different circumstances.
Right. Awesome. Amazing. Just simply really, you know, one of the royal families in our community. And so I am so appreciative of you sharing the history with others who may not know who you are, who Ralph Frasier is, and where you come from, because that means a lot where we come from. And good stock. We don't see a lot of people praising the Black family in this era. So it's always an honor whenever I can refer people to the fact that many of our families were intact before some of the things that we saw happen as a result of Jim Crow, as a result of, just living in the South in particular. But thank you for sharing that. Now, I want to know, why did you choose? Did you follow after your father's footsteps, or did you always want to be an attorney?
I kind of, I guess I did always kind of want to be a lawyer. I think my father, as I said, was a general counsel of a major bank. And I really never had any real desire to want to do that specifically. I wanted to be a litigator.
Okay.
And so that was kind of the strategy and the path that I followed.
Okay. And you are a Black male, and as an attorney, your perspective is unique as both a lawyer and a Black male, a litigator. So you're on the side of the bench or the courts, so to speak, that we don't often see us represented. And especially Black men represented when we compare, the defendants versus the actual legal team. And so your perspective is unique in that you see the legal and justice system through different lenses and lived experience. So let's jump into this Chauvin verdict. I think that you will be able to lend a perspective that, like I said, is unique, coming from the perspective you're a Black man. George Floyd was a Black man. Did you watch the trial? And if yes, give us your critique in the way that the prosecution presented their case versus the defense. How did we end up with 3 guilty charges?
Well, thank God we ended up with 3 guilty charges.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's start there.
Absolutely.
And I am a criminal defense lawyer, and I defend criminals. But thank God that happened. But you're asked about my perspective, and interestingly enough, and I'll go into the trial itself. First of all, I think the prosecution did an excellent job.
Yes,
I think
same
the
here.
prosecution handled the trial in a very good way. I think they put all the evidence together in a manner that people could understand, and I think they did a wonderful job of dealing with whatever it was the defense was trying to throw at them, to throw reasonable doubt in the situation to the extent that they could. As a defense lawyer, I have been asked a number of times, well, so what did you think about the defense lawyer?
Right.
And the reality of it is that he didn't have much to work with.
That's right.
And so, as a defense lawyer, critiquing him as a defense lawyer, I think he did about all he could do with what he had to work with. He had to do some things that were certainly distasteful.
And a lot of smoke and mirrors. But is that what y'all do as defense lawyers?
Unfortunately, that sometimes comes with the territory of being a defense lawyer. And so from that perspective, I actually thought he did a fine job defending him. But here's the perspective though on the end of it. I mean, yes, I'm glad he was convicted, and that's great. But what was sad to me is that in 2021, we are still like we were in 1918.
Right.
And what I mean by that is that we are still hanging by a thread, praying that this man is going to be convicted for killing one of our own.
Yeah. Yeah.
He did it he mashed the man to death like a bug for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And the sad part is that should have been a foregone conclusion. We should have been moving on, doing something else, not even thinking about that.
That's
because
right.
that shouldn't have been something we needed to be worried about as a people.
That's right.
And so, I'm glad he was convicted, because some bad things may have happened, but in the end, it's a sad day in the history of America that we had to sit on pins and needles all day, worried about whether or not this man is going to get convicted in a situation where there was no question about what he did and how he did it. He had a smirk on his face. People were begging for the man's life. The people called the police on the police.
Yeah.
I mean, and the E&S lady was sitting out there telling him, y'all are mashing the life out of him. He stopped breathing right there. Right. Yeah. He's dead now.
Yeah.
I mean, what more does it take?
That's right. And
I told somebody, and this was a joke, right? But I told somebody, if he doesn't get convicted, I'm gonna go out and kill somebody myself, and I should get off.
Right. But that's not how that's gonna come out.
I know.
Right.
No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work that way.
Do you believe we do have? You see, it doesn't work that way. And you're absolutely right. I had butterflies all day waiting for that darn verdict. And, I was praying and hope, and was really like shocked when it was first read, when all three charges of guilty. And then when the bail was revoked, or the bond was revoked, and he was reprimanded, he was held. This was like going into the Twilight Zone at first. My mind could not really process it. And that is a sad commentary that we are in America, and as Black people, we can't we cannot comprehend when the judicial system works in our favor. That is sad commentary. But it's what do you think has to happen in our justice system to make it more equitable, so that this doesn't seem like an anomaly, an outlier, but that the scales truly are balanced? I don't know about all this being blind, Lady Justice being blind and stuff. I think she needs to see. And maybe it's her blindness that creates the disadvantages and the disparities that we see. But, what do you think needs to happen in order for us to see more outcomes like this?
Well, I mean, I think, the outrage that occurred over the course of this last year has got to continue. But, this isn't the first time this has happened in the history of America. You got to understand that. I mean, police have been killing us forever.
Oh, I thought you were getting ready to say this isn't the first time we had a verdict like this in the history of America. No, it's the first time in my history.
It's the first time we've had a verdict. But I'm just saying, right. It is. But I mean, this isn't the first time the killing has been going on. No, you're right. Since the beginning of time. This is the first time. Emmett Till's,
the people, that case, they got off, right? So we still are. Yeah, you're right. It's not the first time.
Right. It's not the first time this has happened. And, and the only thing that saved us this time was that it was recorded.
But so was Rodney King. What was different about that? Was Rodney King recorded.
But again, I don't have an explanation.
Okay.
And again, it's a sad commentary on the state of America. It's not. Yeah. Today, right before I came on the show, they just passed some laws to try to make it basic in Florida, to outlaw protesting.
Right.
So it's now we live in China.
Right.
Where it's, you can't protest.
Right.
And if you do, you're going to be arrested. And if you do, if you
Or look at
see
Georgia. You
damage
can't pass out water at
you can't
at
pass out
precincts.
water at the polling booths. I mean,
Right.
this is Jim Crow all over again.
Yep.
And so we gotta wake up.
Yeah.
Is what we've got to do. We've got to get back to doing the things that that our parents did.
Right.
We've got to organize and we've got to unify.
Yeah.
Because the strength is in the block.
Yeah.
The strength isn't in me.
Right.
The strength isn't in you. We can all each individually do whatever we want to do, but if we don't eventually try to do it together, then there's no strength in it.
That's right. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you go.
Well, thank you. I didn't have this question, but I do want to bring it in. So Micaiah, I forget her last name, the 16-year-old girl that was shot and killed in Ohio. She was brandishing a knife and going towards another female, and the officer came to the scene and shot and killed her. And that has sparked a conversation about the adultification of Black kids, Black girls and boys, that the system sees them as adults, society sees them as adults. As a criminal defense lawyer, have you had to defend kids who've killed and who were Black, and have you defended any that have killed who were white? And do you see a difference in the way they're treated in the judicial system?
The unfortunate answer to that is yes. I have defended both African Americans and I have defended white people. And I zealously defend them all. But, sometimes it's easier to deal with the white people's situation than it is. Here's just a prime example. I mean, I've been practicing now for 27 years. And, we had the crack epidemic and now we have a heroin epidemic.
Yeah. Say that again, because people are not aware of that. A lot of people don't know that. We've got the opioids, but we've got, especially in Durham and some of our urban cities, Greensboro, other places, a heroin problem. And
right.
It is.
Well, but the heroin is that's all just another form of the opioid. Right. The heroin is back now because pills and the opioid epidemic. It's a progression, right? Mm-hmm. And I start out on some Percocets, and then my prescription runs out, and my next form of that is heroin.
Right.
And so I go get the heroin now, and now I'm a heroin addict.
Yeah.
And so it's a progression in the end from the heroin piece. But in the end, crack was treated as criminal problem.
Right.
Heroin's not necessarily being treated that way.
Oh, really?
I had an opportunity to represent a white kid who was charged with bank robbery, and he hired me, but he came and paid me. And so when he's a kid who I knew, and so what I was able to say to him is I said, "Hey man, I want you to know this: you're the first bank robber that has ever come in my office to hire me."
Wow.
And it was only because he was a white kid who had a opioid addiction.
Right.
And the court saw pity on him and let him out on bond.
Wow.
But that doesn't happen to Black kids. And the other problem is that it's not really the adultification of our kids, it's fear. Mm-hmm. They genuinely, and for no reason, I'm not justifying the fear, but they genuinely fear Black people.
And I understand, because you don't hear too many Black kids going in and shooting up schools. And so,
no, you don't.
And so I always say the evidence.
It's inbred racism.
Yeah, right.
It's inbred racism. It's not. It's nothing more than that.
Right.
It's not. It is racism
at
its core.
Yeah.
At its core. And, we as a people have some of the problem ourselves. It's not, it's not just white police officers who are shooting our young kids.
That's true.
It's African-American police officers as well who are doing it. And it's fear.
Yeah.
It's fear. And my position for those people who are scared is that, if you're that scared, you don't need to be a police officer.
That's right. And I say the same thing about teachers.
That's the wrong job for you.
That's right. That's right.
Job for you.
That's right.
So I wouldn't want that job. And I respect police officers. I have some friends that are police officers. And so I'm not criticizing them for being police. But if the mere sight of me brings that much fear to you, right, then this isn't the job for you.
That's right.
Because, the other kid, I can't think of his name right this moment, who was just shot in Minnesota. He 20 years old.
Dante Wright.
Frail.
Yeah.
3 officers standing right there. It looked to me like any one of them could have snatched.
Could have grabbed him. I thought the same thing. I was like, Dante Wright looks like a little puny yeah. But
so I don't know what happened to a little fight.
Right.
Without the cuffs on. What happened to grabbing someone who's not defenseless?
Right.
What happened to that?
That's right.
And so
but why?
I got into an argument with a friend of mine about that, because he said, well, he was going for his car. He could have been scared. I said, oh, if he was scared, then he shouldn't be an officer.
Right. Right. So is that the Dante Wright case? Because a woman shot him. You're talking about the one with
I am talking about the Dante Wright case,
okay.
But there were 3 officers there.
That's right. That's right.
And 2 other officers.
Yeah. She's the one that
2 other male officers.
Right. Right.
And she's a 27-year veteran.
That's right. And who mistook her taser for a gun, which, is a lot of. So I think the prosecutor should have a field day with that case too. That should be an easy foregone conclusion.
There have been 6 people killed in Minnesota by police, and she's killed 2 of them.
Wow.
She killed 2 of them.
Wow.
And she was training. She'd already killed an innocent Black person.
Wow.
Or person. Let's just call it. I don't even know that it was a Black person at this point. I don't want to speak out of tongue. But either way, she'd already killed somebody.
Right.
And she's a training officer.
That's right. That's right. So for us, it seems shoot first and justify it later, and give other people the benefit of the doubt, white people, the benefit of the doubt, and that they're not going to harm anybody else. And what sticks, people keep talking about the what is it, Whitlock? I forget the case, but I always go back to Dylan Roof. This kid just killed a whole lot of folk in church, and then you gonna capture him and take him and give him a burger before you take him and put him in custody or put him, so our kids are never given that kind of compassion. And I think that's what it gets down to. It's seeing our kids as humans, seeing our kids as children, even though some of them now maybe maybe because of childhood trauma or whatever, may rightfully so, you may need to fear them, but don't just automatically assume that they are going to harm you or that they are a threat. Not a risk, as was pointed out in the trial, but a threat. And that's what we are perceived as. I want to talk about this intersection of class and race, because you hit on something about even Black people respond negatively and discriminate in different ways. This implicit bias towards Black kids. And I argue that it's Black kids from certain communities especially. So if you come from a low income, a public housing community or whatever, you don't seem to get the same grace as if you came from a Frasier family. Or is that incorrect?
I can't. The answer to that is no. Yes, okay. There's got to be some implicit class bias. Whether it's due to exposure or whether it's due to just class bias, there is some, and it's about access.
Right.
In the end, It is about access and exposure.
It's about
Um,
access. It's about social capital and political capital. So black
it
kids
is.
who come from families that have social capital and political capital will do better and will get better breaks, more breaks
Well, I
than
mean,
those that don't, right?
that's like, but that's not really a racial issue.
No, it's not. It's a class issue.
That's an American issue.
Yeah,
Because it that goes across all races,
that's
across
true.
all classes, and across all nations.
That's true. Well, have you seen poor whites
It,
get the same similar kinds of treatment that poor blacks? So do you
I've
really think
seen
once you
poor,
drill down?
I've seen poor whites get bad treatment. I've
Okay,
seen poor blacks get bad treatment. I've seen some poor whites get better treatment than black people, but that's a racial issue. Um, that the gentleman who I was speaking about didn't come from a lot of means. He just they let him out.
right.
So he wasn't a rich kid that caught a break. But he was white, and and he and I had a frank conversation about it, about the fact that and he acknowledged that he knew that if he was a black kid, because he was from Durham,
Right.
that he knew if he was a black kid, he would not be out.
Right.
I mean, so there are different issues that get addressed. The socioeconomic issues are across all racial classes, and everybody. That's a socioeconomic issue.
That's true.
Black people, even wealthy black people, don't get the breaks that white people get.
Wow.
Wealthy white people get.
Okay.
And that's again an access issue.
Right.
Even some wealthy African Americans don't necessarily have the access. The judicial system and the legal system and the judges, and I know some of them because I'm there every day.
That's right.
But there are a lot of black lawyers that don't know any judges.
And that's what I mean by social and political capital. If you don't have a Rolodex with some influential people in it, it doesn't matter how much money you have, depending on the level of trouble you're in.
And so that, quite frankly, is the most powerful thing. It's the Rolodex. It's the being able to make the call.
Yep.
And you don't necessarily have to have wealth for that.
That's right.
That's not necessarily a wealth thing. It's being able to make the call.
Yep. Yep. I have a few business cards and I have a few numbers down on speed dial. Because, I'm subject to join a protest at any time and might end up in jail. So I need some people. But I remember when I was protesting in Raleigh with Reverend Barber and Moral Mondays and NAACP and other groups and got arrested. And when I got out, I tell people about our experience. So when they arrested us this particular time, this was for the... I'm trying to think which time it was that I had gotten arrested. One of the times I got arrested, they arrested us. They took us in. This was before they started taking us out from downtown in Wake County so they held us in downtown Raleigh in the Wake County jail, whatever the thing, right? Detention center. And they let us keep our cell phones for one. So I had this young white girl from Chapel Hill who got arrested with us, and Camille was doing cartwheels, and they were telling us to move over. They had us down where they drive in the people that they arrest and down in the basement or whatever. And so they were telling us to move over when they had to bring the real, quote unquote, real criminals in. We got to keep our phones. They brought us water. We got to order pizza. And so and then I got to take my mugshot several times because I said, look, y'all ain't gonna have me looking crazy in the Slammer magazine. So it was about 3 times, and the lady was like, look, this time this is gonna be your mugshot, basically. But I thought about it and I was like, wow. I know people don't get treated like this. I know they take everything. But it was just an amazing experience, an eye-opening experience, how they were treating us, civil disobedience arrestees, And then I saw how they were bringing other people in, and it is two different worlds. But that had to do with social capital and political capital. And then when I come out. My husband said, "You ain't gonna believe who came down here and asked if I needed help with your bail to get you out." A prominent doctor, an MD, came down and asked my husband if he was good, if I was going to be good, and did he need. So that's social capital and that's political capital. I know that's not how the real world works. That's just not how the real world works, depending on who you are and where you come from and all of that. So I want to ask about mental health and substance use, because I believe our prisons and our jails have become default mental health centers and facilities. What do you think we need to do in order to stop criminalizing mental health and substance use? Because I think many of the charges are many of the cases you're seeing dealing with people who have mental health or substance use disorders. Many of the people you defend, or no?
Most of them.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the people that I defend, have some kind of mental health issue. Let me just start there. And most of them suffer from some kind of substance abuse issue.
Right.
And for most of them, that is the driving force behind what had them in whatever situation it is that they're in. I mean, I disposed of a homicide case in the last week. And that gentleman had a massive alcohol problem. That had, he was homeless at the time that the homicide occurred. And, it had been a long time problem. And that was the source of why this happened.
Right. Wow. Yeah.
And so, we were able to use that to help his case. But at the same time, the reality of it is that it was a very sad story.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the unfortunate thing is that is the driving force behind most of the problems that we've got in our community.
Are you seeing younger defendants, younger and younger?
Well, it is a younger and younger problem, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that depends on, there's always been young defendants,
mm-hmm.
So let's not overstate the problem by any means.
That's true.
There have always been young defendants.
That's
There are always going to be young defendants.
Yeah, people age out of acting bad. They realize, I'm too old for this. Yeah.
And I mean, I got clients now, old clients now that I see that are old, and they're like, "Yeah, Mr. Frasier, I ain't doing that no more."
Yeah.
And so, and so, there were always young defendants. So this isn't really a new thing. Some of the crimes are certainly changing, and some of the driving forces behind what the criminal activity is changing.
I was going to ask you about that, about sex trafficking and girls getting caught up. Are you seeing an increase in any of that, in sex trafficking, human trafficking?
There's certainly an increase in human trafficking. Prostitution is on the rise in a different way. It used to be on the street corner, or in Durham, it used to be Ainger Avenue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's gone inside now, and so that institution is increasing.
That's true. And so for any of the young people out there who call themselves in the drug game or what have you, what's always sad is
get out.
Right, get out. Everybody thinks they're gonna be Tony Montana or what was his name? What you call his name in New Jack City? And it just and if I could, I want to slap them and say, y'all, it just doesn't work that way. That's TV. That's But then there may be some cases, maybe some examples where young guys are looking at old OGs or older guys and saying, old gangsters, whatever, and are saying, no, Dr. Laws, no, really, I can make some money. So and so is making a lot of money. Tell me, make the case for why young people should not get in this drug game and how it's a dead end.
Because I don't know any old OGs.
Right.
That's why.
Right. None that beat the system, right?
I don't know none that beat the system.
Right.
They either died or they went to prison, or, I mean, those are really the only two options.
That's right.
Either died or they went to prison.
Yep.
There aren't any old OGs out here.
That's right.
There was a time in history where there, and there were a couple sprinkled around here and there.
Right. Yep.
But, you know, the ones that I know who I still see are the ones who I see that say, hey, Mr. Frasier, what's going on, Mash?
Yeah.
I ain't doing that no more.
Right. Right. They like, we beat that. But yeah.
The ones that I see that that fall back into that trap, I see again.
Yeah. And that's the sad.
And eventually your time runs out.
That's so true. And there's so much more to talk about in terms of this criminal justice system and how we need to transform it. I'm going to have you back because I know somebody will get me if I don't talk about the whiskey business. So you like fast cars, whiskey, and I ain't going to say women, but you know they go hand in hand. We'll get there in a minute. What's the saddest case you ever had?
Ooh. I don't know that I can answer that question really, because they're all sad.
Yeah.
You know, in their own way. You know, whether it be somebody who came from a good circumstance and just didn't have to be there, or whether it came from somebody who came from really bad circumstances and probably did have to be there. It's still sad. You know, either way, either somebody had a chance and effed it up, or somebody didn't have a chance and just didn't have a chance.
Right.
And so it's, you know, I don't know which story is sadder sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's a very good point. I like that. That's a good answer. All right, we're going to shift gears here and we're going to talk about your business ventures, your other business ventures. And particularly, I want you to tell us about Still Moon Whiskey. How did you become a partner in the whiskey business and Down South Beverage? So tell us about that whole.
So the company is Down South Beverage Company. And the reason it's Down South Beverage Company, because we hope that this is the first of maybe some other beverages. But in the end, Still Moon Whiskey is 100% pure corn whiskey.
Wow.
And it is a product that we started about 6 years ago. And we is a group of North Carolina A&T State University gentlemen.
Aggie Pride.
And me from Hampton University and the North Carolina Central University.
Eagle Pride. I always have to remind my husband. Yeah, go ahead.
But we put this business together about 5 or 6 years ago. And really, it was a group of friends. We all have been friends.
So what were y'all making whiskey in the bathroom or in the kitchen or what?
Kind of sorta.
Really?
Like that. Well, so all of us. I mentioned that I come from Eastern North Carolina too, down in Farmers Union, and so I had family that we made moonshine and. Some of them come from Roxborough, some of them came from Wilkesboro, and so we all had our own little version of moonshine. And so it really started as a competition on everybody coming together for whether it be homecoming or just some other event, and everybody would bring a little bit of their stuff. And who has the best stuff. And
my nephew, I gotta put a plug in for my nephew. I ain't gonna call his name out because I know I guess it's illegal to make it at home. I guess
it is.
So I'm not gonna put him out there, but I think he's got some pretty good stuff.
Well, and so and as a result of that passion that we all had, we decided let's figure out a way to take this and do something with it.
Yeah.
and Still Moon came out of that. And it is a sophisticated sipping shine.
Okay.
We bottled it in a upscale bottle, because it is an upscale drink.
So you got
But
apple pie. What is it? Apple pie and special reserves or something like that,
we
right?
got an apple pie, special reserve, and a white peach.
Oh, okay. All right. And where can people buy it legally?
And so legally, you can purchase it in North Carolina, and it is shelved in some of the ABC stores. We're not in all of them. North Carolina is unique in that there are 100 ABC boards, which means to go with the 100 counties.
Can people buy it
And so
online or no?
you cannot yet buy it online. We
Okay.
hope to have that situation solved here in the next 60 to 90 days. We're also in some Total Wine locations, which would not impact North Carolina, but we're in Total Wine locations in Tennessee, Maryland, Texas, Georgia, and South Carolina.
Okay.
And so you can purchase it there. Our website will tell you exactly where you can purchase it.
And the
But in North
website, is it
Carolina,
Still Moon, or for the listeners, is it down south or Still Moon?
it is www.drinkstillmoon.com.
Okay. And y'all had
That
John
is
Brown
the
do a nice little promo that I thought was nice.
We did.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's real nice.
Yes.
So are you going to make some, are you going to next get into the cigar business to go with the whiskey, or I can give you some ideas now.
I'm waiting on them to legalize.
Says the ordained
marijuana.
minister. I can tell you some stuff. I can tell you what I think would be good for y'all to also do. So what, you waiting on what?
We're going to do infused beverages when they legalize marijuana.
Oh my. And you know what? I keep telling people, especially again, going back to the young people who are street pharmaceutical or pharmacists or sales reps or whatever they call themselves. They need to be researching right now. They need to be looking at land right now to get into that business, because I do believe North Carolina eventually will legalize cannabis. And I think they need to start looking at ways to make a legal living out of it, because there are too many people, too many of us, our community, that have gone to jail for marijuana charges, and they know too much about it. I mean, they the stuff they're doing now, the loud, I guess that's all I know, the loud I hear. But I mean, the stuff they're doing, the whatever, the candies, the stuff, I mean, I'd say invest your time and energy in learning how to be legit. Did we lose our guest? Well, I'm going to keep talking, but it looks like we lost our guest, and hopefully he will come back on. So I lost you. All right. So I lost you. Okay. Did you hear anything I said though about going legit, about the young guys? I think eventually cannabis will be legalized in in North Carolina. And I think that's a smart move to start researching now.
Oh, I don't disagree. I mean, so, Virginia has recently gone legal, both recreational and medicinal.
Mm-hmm.
There was a Republican senator in North Carolina last week who pushed forward a medicinal bill in North Carolina. I suspect that before the end of this term, the federal government is going to authorize legalization of marijuana for at least medicinal purposes and possibly recreationally as well.
Right.
I think that they're going to definitely decriminalize it so that the rest of the states are free to do what they want to do. And they've already pushed forward a banking regulation to allow the medicinal, the marijuana industry into the banking industry, which will really change the game for those companies, because it'll open up capital markets that haven't been available to them previously.
Well, but do you think, but I think I think we need to, mechanics and farmers needs to definitely be a player, because the same problems that blacks are having with getting loans for others' business ventures is going to exist, and it's probably going to, exacerbate the gap between capital access for blacks and that of whites. I don't think we're not going to be able to get in there easily.
The unfortunate part is that, we typically are second, third, or fourth to the game.
Yep.
Each time there's a game being played.
Yeah.
And, so yes, you're right. If we're not moving now, then we're going to miss it. The other thing is that typically for new industries like this, you really need to be able to play the game in a loser's way for a little while.
Right.
Which means you got to have some staying power and being able to sustain. And that's typically how they weed us out of the game.
Yeah.
Is that we typically don't have the capital that will allow us to sustain the downtime that's required to live through in order to reap the rewards.
That's why I tell the young people now, anybody that, especially those that are in the legal, on the illegal side of it, the underground economy side of it now, start doing your research. Look for land. Ask auntie, can you buy on the cheap a couple of acres from her? Or ask grandma, instead of, if you leaving me something in your will, let me have my land now, because I want to cultivate. I'm thinking about being ready when this turns to get into this business. So I think people need to start doing their research. There are two brothers out of California. They served some time and they came out. They were featured on I think not Michelle Martin, but they were featured on one of the PBS things as one of the few multi-millionaires that had that kind of track record. They served some time. They came out. And they're successful in the cannabis business, but they said that there's like a handful of them, and they're out in California.
Well, I mean, and the answer is, that again, that they're going to do everything they can to make sure that these markets are open to limited people. But I think for North Carolina in particular, it can be a replacement for the tobacco industry in Eastern North Carolina, and possibly be a great shot in the arm to, what has become a fairly dilapidated farm industry.
Well, how many black farmers are left in Eastern North Carolina, though? And how many of them were in the tobacco industry?
Well, just about all of them were in the tobacco industry. Okay. At least all of my family that were farmers in Eastern North Carolina, for the most part, were at least majority tobacco farmers. They may have done some corn and soybeans, but tobacco was their, as we call it, the cash crop.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that marijuana and hemp, for that matter, has the potential, because our soil is right.
Yes.
For it, to replace some of that income.
Right. Is hemp illegal? Is growing hemp illegal?
So no, growing hemp is not illegal yet, and you can still do something with the flower, but the legislature, and I'm not completely sure what the law is, but they did something to change what you could and could not do with the flower itself, which basically gutted some of the financial incentive to be involved.
Is hemp marijuana? I mean, I don't know the difference.
Hemp is not marijuana. Hemp is hemp. You could look at some hemp and think that it's marijuana.
Okay.
Which was really the reason that they tried to gut some of the laws, is because the law enforcement was having problems being able to arrest people because people say it's hemp.
Oh, okay.
And they couldn't tell the difference. And the only way to tell the difference is to test the THC level, which is a pretty complicated chemical analysis that not even the state crime lab can do at this point, or could do at this point. It had to be sent off to a special lab in order to actually do that testing.
So being a criminal, we're going to shift, being a criminal defense lawyer. So could somebody say, I got arrested, but it was him. They arrested me on a marijuana charge, but it was him.
I have a case
Wow.
where they arrested a young lady and they thought that they had 50 pounds of marijuana, and it is in fact 50 pounds of hemp.
Wow. So did they throw? So they're gonna throw the case out?
It will go away.
Very good. Very good. Any way that we can not get out of trouble, but so we have just 5 more minutes, and so I want to first of all just thank you. I'm going to have you back on again. There's so many more things I want to talk about with you. Thanks for coming on, and next time you'll have to tell us, how people who are interested in getting in the beverage business, and what other beverages too are you going to do? Beer or brew? What other things are you going to brew up?
We want to sell this one first.
Okay.
That's what we want to sell this one first. We're trying to make this one successful. As I said, we are investigating the infused beverage industry, and it may be just infusing moonshine.
Okay.
For starters, but that's probably the next direction.
That's gonna be something. Alcohol infused with marijuana, Lord, jeez. I guess you're giving everybody their one shot, whatever they want or need. So, on a personal note, you are a dad. What message would you give to other Black fathers about the importance role that fathers play?
Love your children.
Yeah.
If there's one thing that I see in most of my criminal defendants, and this is across the board, it doesn't matter what your color is, what your race is, and it doesn't matter whether you're male or female, it's a lack of love. Kids react out and act out because they're looking or missing or wanting or searching for things.
That's right. Right.
And it's typically, sadly enough, it's love. And in particular for Black males, it's love from a Black man.
Yep. And that's why I tell these women out here, stop using your children to get back at their fathers. It's done. Whatever's done between you all is done. But don't use your kids as pawns in this, game that you play to try and hurt the dad, because it really ultimately is hurting the child. And
it destroys the child.
It does, man. It really does. It's so sad when I see that play out, because the person that's being destroyed is the child. And, you're saying, well, no, this whatever you want to call him, he ain't coming to be with my child. He's not going to see my child until she grown, or he is grown. And that can create a world of damage and hurt and traumatize the child. And then also, this whole child support. I agree, child support is absolutely necessary, but I know I've heard stories and know of cases where brothers get out of jail and the first thing they want to do, because they don't come back to the female, they go to another woman, is have him up for child. Well, he ain't got no job. So what you're getting ready to do is send him back into prison because he's going to get in the rears with child. I mean, it's just stop the nonsense. That's to the listening audience who might be in that predicament.
I'm with you on all of that.
Yeah, I mean, that is crazy. All right, so our last 1 minute. What would you say to your younger self, and then what gives you hope?
Woo. What would I say to my younger self?
Right. I'm laughing because I can only imagine, but what would you say?
If I could say something to my younger self, I would say, in all honesty, I wish that I had saved early.
Oh, okay.
I wish I had.
That's not where I was at. But
well, we're on the radio, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. Yes. What gives you hope? What gives you hope?
The youth give me hope.
Great.
The youth give me hope. that gives me hope that, it's really not on us anymore.
That's right.
You and I are,
That's
I hate to say it, but I tell people now all the time, I'm on the short hairs now.
Right.
And so in the end, it's really, we've done what, a lot of what we can and are going to be able to do.
Yep.
And it's really not on us anymore.
That's right.
And so, there is some hope in the fact that I do think the youth is not going to they're not going to put up with some of this racism that their parents are spewing.
That's right.
But
the producer,
to get there is frightening.
That's right. The producer has our outro playing. I want to thank you again, my friend. I'm going to have you back on. This has been a wonderful, meaningful conversation. Thank everybody who tuned in and who will play this over again and will play it maybe for the first time. It will be on Oak 93.5's Facebook page. We also have it we'll upload it to YouTube, and it will stream out through different streaming podcast services. Follow me, Michelle Laws 7 on Twitter. Jesus Take the Wheel is my handle, and on Instagram, Michelle Laws 007. Until next Thursday, take care of yourselves. Make sure you practice those 3 W's. Peace and blessings. We are out.